Taiwan, India, and China. Good afternoon, viewers in Indonesia and Singapore. Market Headlines is ready to provide you a number of informations from business, economic, and capital market sectors. With me, Lantai Wijaya, and this is Market Headlines. As viewers, President Joko Widodo stated that several derivative regulations from the job creation law had been completed, and the government ensures to immediately issue the regulation.
In the signing of the commitment of foreign investment and domestic investment with MSMEs, President Joko Widodo stated that several derivative regulations from the job creation law had been completed. The government ensures to immediately issue the regulations.
Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja telah diundangkan dan peraturan turunannya juga akan segera diterbitkan. Sudah ada yang selesai dan yang lain segera menyusul. Untuk terus meningkatkan kemudahan berusaha. Dan kemitraan strategis antara perusahaan besar dengan UMKM akan terus kita kembangkan dengan prinsip saling menguntungkan dan meningkatkan daya saing di pasar global.
However, Jokowi did not elaborate on which derivative regulations had been completed. He also did not specify the derivative regulations which are still in the process of being finalized. However, there are several draft presidential regulations and government regulations that were presented by the government on the official website ciptakerja.go.id, namely the investment business sector, procurement of government goods or services, the Agency for Accelerating Housing Management, government cooperation with SOE in basic geospatial, and financial rights and facilities for the Construction Services Development Agency. From all sources, for IDX Channel.
Due to its great pressure to the business sector, entrepreneurs in the hotel, restaurant, retail, and mall management asked the government not to extend the policy on restriction community activities, or PPKM, Java and Bali, which ends on January 25, 2021.
Entrepreneurs in hotel, restaurant, retail, and mall management industries asked the government not to continue the policy on restricting community activities, or PPKM, in Java and Bali, which ends on January 25, 2021. This was conveyed by the General Chairman of the Indonesian Hotel and Restaurant Association, Haryadi Sukamdani. The presentation was also attended by representatives from the Indonesian Shopping Center Management Association and the Indonesian Shopping Centers Association. He added that the request was submitted because the PPKM policy put great pressure on entrepreneurs in various sectors. The reason is because of the policy, the capacity or occupancy, operating hours, income and cash flow in the business sectors have decreased. It also impacts the lives of workers and also impacts the business ecosystem at large. In addition, the previous PPKM policies were implemented without involving the business sector. For this reason, he hopes that future policies can take into account input from hotels, restaurants, retails, and malls entrepreneurs, which are industries affected by the policy. From all sources, for IDX Channel.
Yes, viewers, 2020 was indeed a year that full of incentives for workers as government support. And one of the iconic incentives was the wage subsidy program. And however, government is still uncertain to keep the wage subsidy program going on this year. The Minister of Manpower, Ida Fauzia, said that the government has not been able to provide certainty about the continuations of wage subsidy program in 2021 fiscal year. So far, there is no order from President to keep the program going on. Although his party has not received any confirmations because there is no order, there's a possibility that a wage subsidy program will be continued if Indonesia's economic conditions have not fully returned to normal. This was conveyed by the minister during a working meeting with the Commission 9 House of Representatives on Monday.
Kami memang akan melakukan evaluasi kinerja pengelolaan program BSU tahun 2020. Jika memang 2021 akan ada lagi, maka ini menjadi bagian dari penyempurnaan. Sekarang sedang dalam proses kami melakukan rekonsiliasi data oleh bank penyalur dan anggaran BSU yang belum tersalurkan per 30 Desember kami kembalikan ke kas.
Furthermore, the minister hopes that the reconciliations of the Ministry of Manpower's data, which related to banks, will be completed in January 2021. From Jakarta, Rahajo Pakmo for IDX Channel. Back in 2020, Manpower Ministry issued regulations which provides wage subsidies for employees in the private sector. And up to now, ministers say that the realizations of the distributions of the wage subsidy program has reached 98.91%.
With the economy at recessions in 2020, the government hopes this initiative can boost household consumption for some 15.7 million workers throughout Indonesia. The total realizations reached 29.4 trillion throughout 2020. The realizations of first batch distributions was 14.7 trillion rupiah. The number was equivalent to 99.1%. While the second batch reached 14.6 trillion rupiah and equivalent to 98%. From all sources for IDX Channel.
Market headlines will be right back after this quick break. Stay tuned.
Saya Prisa Samodatu membawakan program berita News Screen yang menghadirkan informasi seputar ekonomi maupun juga bisnis dari dalam negeri.
Perbaikan pertumbuhan ekonomi adalah bukti bahwa penanganan COVID-19 berjalan dengan maksimal.
Dari data-data yang ada, kita sudah mulai bangkit dari resesi ini.
Presiden Joko Widodo menekankan peningkatan pengembangan pasar harus dilakukan di tengah pandemi COVID-19.
Saya ingin ingatkan dan tekankan kembali untuk terus mencari pasar-pasar baru.
Saya kedatangan tamu nih, kasih ide dari pesantren. Bilang kenapa sih kita nggak buat suatu kosmetik yang islami, bagus, harganya bersaing. Sebetulnya usaha ini sukses bukan karena saya ya. Usaha sukses karena karyawan saya. Tahun 90 saya dapat cobaan lah ya, ujian dari Allah, kebakar habis minus. Kenapa saya bisa bangkit kembali? Yang saya pikirkan nasib karyawan.
Welcome back to Market Headlines. So everyone is longing for economic recovery to happen as soon as possible, but frankly speaking, Minister of Finance Sri Mulyani Indrawati predicts that Indonesia's economy will grow slower in the first quarter of 2021. Pessimism hurdles the economic recovery in the first quarter of 2021. Minister of Finance Sri Mulyani Indrawati projects that the economic growth in 2021 will only rebound in the second quarter of 2021, not in the first quarter. This is because the first quarter of 2021, the economy will be still under pressure as people purchasing power weakens. Second quarter is more promising because there will be a period of high season public demand as there will be a momentum of Ramadan and Eid al-Fitr holidays. As for the whole year, the Sri Mulyani is optimistic that the economic growth for 2021 will still be at the level of 5% year-on-year. This is in accordance with the government's surrogate and state budget for fiscal year 2021. From all sources, IDX Channel. So Indonesia had been through a rough 2020, and we have to appreciate that. But still, pessimism covers Indonesia in 2021, as Minister of Finance projects that the economic growth in 2021 will only rebound in the second quarter of 2021, not in the first quarter. So how's the market conditions then? So what should investors do? We're going to have further discussions live by Zoom with Frankie Prasetyo as the head of equity trading. He will elaborate more on a capital market in 2021 as investors head into crucial phase of recovery. His recommendations may provide valuable directions for building a resilient portfolio. So hello, Frankie.
Hello, Clara.
Hello, Frankie. Here's the case. The first quarter of 2021, it's still under pressure because the people purchasing power weakens. So does this affect investor behavior?
Actually, I believe that currently people's appetite on investing in risk assets is actually higher because of a phenomena called TINA. TINA is there is no alternative.
Right.
As currently the yield of deposito is not as high or attractive as let's say 10 years ago. Right now, when you deposit your money, you get below 4% net. So and also the businesses are relatively restricted. So when they have excess cash, they usually put their cash to work in a more yielding asset class, which is stocks. So, which is also why we see that the SID or the number of investors is actually rising. It rises I think 60, based on the data, 60% year on year. So it is a significant rise for retail investors and especially the millennial investors.
All right, sir. So when we talk about the sentiment in here, as we know that there is a pessimism from the Minister of Finance, Sri Mulyani, that stated that economic recovery in 2021 would likely happen in the second quarter, not in the first quarter of 2021.
Yes.
Do you see any of influential to the JCI?
I believe that the COVID-19 situation is not unique to Indonesia. Well, by that, what I mean is Indonesia is not the only country that suffers from the pandemic. That is the worst pandemic in 100 years. So when all other countries are suffering the same, they have to adjust their numbers also. And when they adjust the numbers, I believe the sentiment will be relatively neutral to us. And the big thing for institutional investors are where to put the fund to generate yield, to generate higher yield, especially in this low interest rate environment. And on this, I believe that emerging market is especially a good place. It's a sweet spot in the market because our blue chip valuation is still relatively cheap, especially if we compare it to the other markets. And then the second one is we have interesting bond yield. For instance, 20% of investment grade bond, it is trading in a negative yield, and the vast majority is traded below 4%. And our surat utang negara is currently yielding 6.27%. So I believe that with that, we are quite in a good position to get investors. And then I believe that we are the fourth most populous country in the world, which means that Indonesia, the market is huge, and we have a really, really interesting growth story. So
That's really interesting that you say that investors in Indonesia are paying attention to investment. I mean, we've been through a lot in 2020, but right now in 2021, people are going to the stock market and other investments. And of course, sir, when we talk about investors in here and flocking of investors in 2021, we can see that JCI rally this month. Well, despite the Santa Claus rally and the January effect, we can see that JCI movement is really fascinating these days. But as we know that JCI yesterday was closed at the red territory, and up to now, JCI was closed at the level of 6,300, which is in a red zone. Do you think that this corrections is health enough, or do you think that will be another corrections coming up?
Okay, actually, our theme for Indonesia for long term is actually good, right? But as we can see that JCI has been rallied since the U.S. presidential election in the 3rd of November. It is from 5,100 to right now, I think 6,320. That means it has been rallying for like 25%. It is a significant rally in just a short amount of time. So I believe that a correction is to be expected. And about how deep the potential correction, it really depends on the market sentiment. Because right now, when the market goes down, it was because of the rise in COVID spike in the COVID cases. But on the other hand, when the year end of last year, we see the spike in COVID cases, but the market kept rallying up. So it really all depends on the market sentiment, and we believe that 6,000 will be a major support for JCI. And for one note, I think that in the early January, we've got like Santa Claus rally in the December, right?
Yes.
And January effect. And this past rally, usually I call it the influencers rally.
All right, sir.
It's a little bit vain, but it is what it is.
That's really interesting, sir. So you say that you're very optimistic in the capital market situation 2021, and we have to enjoy the rally of JCI itself, sir.
Yes.
Thank you for your time with us, sir. That's really interesting conversations. So, viewers, stay tuned with us because Market Headlines will be right back after this quick break.
Ya, Wall Street memulai 2021 dengan aksi jual di mana salah satu indeks utamanya yakni Dow Jones melemah 1,25%. Ya, indeks harga saham gabungan naik signifikan, pemirsa. Kita akan mencoba menganalisis beberapa sentimen isu.
Proyeksikan bahwa perdagangan kita masih ada potensi untuk menguat. Ya.
Akankah menjadi sentimen yang positif yang ikut mendorong juga?
Biasanya sangat kuat gitu mempengaruhi bursa saham kita ya.
Ya.
Senang sekali saya David San Ovo dan dapat hadir menemani Anda dalam program spesial dialog webinar on TV.
Setiap minggunya kita akan membahas tema-tema yang sangat menarik. Apa kabar ibu-ibu sekalian?
Alhamdulillah baik.
Salah satu ambisi daripada Kementerian Koperasi dan UMKM bersama Spesco adalah koperasi keren, baru, digital gitu kan, yang kita bisa IT.
Kementerian Pariwisata dan Ekonomi Kreatif telah menyiapkan 3 program yang menjadi langkah awal untuk membangkitkan pariwisata di tahun 2021.
Pemerintah menegaskan bahwa di awal tahun 2021 ini tetap fokus pada aspek kesehatan masyarakat.
Kita melihat bahwa tren positif itu terjadi karena pertumbuhan kuartal ke kuartal itu sudah di 5,05%.
Pemerintah memastikan akan mengubah bantuan sosial di wilayah Jabodetabek dari skema bantuan sembako menjadi bantuan langsung tunai.
So viewers, let's take a look at Jakarta Composite Index and 3-day movement. So earlier today, JCI was open at the level of 6,340.34, and then approaching the closing time of the first session, the index is on a level of 6,352.38, and then the index was showing weakening trend by the second session closing time. The index was closed at the level 6,321.85. In short, JCI went down 1.06%. And next, we are going to see the sectoral movement. Leading the dynamics of today's trading, we got mining as the leader of the weakening trend that went down 3.36%. We got construction that went down 2.6%. We got consumer goods that went down 0.39%, and trade went down 0.31%. And moving on to the top gainers and the top losers, here are the key highlights from today's trading session. We got ICBP that went up 1.3%. We got EXCL that went up 6.05%. We got INKP that went up 2.2%. And PWOR that went up 3.9%. And meantime, for the top losers for today's trading session, we got Waskita that went down 6.77%. We got Aneka Tambang that went down 6.87%. We got PGAS that went down 5.01%, and PTPP that went down 6.81%. Moving on to rupiah, we're going to see the intraday movement of rupiah towards US dollar. So rupiah opened at the level of 14,086. Rupiah was also showing weakening trend towards US dollar. It was closed at the level of 14,079. In summary, rupiah went down 0.54%. Listed company Indonesian Tobacco is expanding its market, and this time the company has targeted several targets such as South Africa, Taiwan, India, and China.
The statement was approved by President Director of Indonesian Tobacco, Johnny Saksono. Countries such as South Africa, Taiwan, India, and China is about to be company's new target markets, specifically in the retail segment. The company will export sliced tobacco. According to management, sliced tobacco, which is known abroad as roll your own cigarette, has a good prospect in those countries. In South Africa, for example, sliced tobacco is popular there. The reason is that the price of cigarettes in South Africa is quite expensive, while there are quite a lot of low-income groups, and therefore, sliced tobacco is the right cigarette to fit in. According to management projections, the portion sales of contributions to South Africa, Taiwan, India, and China, if combined, it could reach 10% of company's total sales in 2022. While overseeing market expansion opportunities abroad, company also continues to oversee its domestic market expansion agenda. From all sources, IDX Channel.
As the COVID-19 vaccination program rolls out in a number of countries, mining company Indo Tambang Raya Megah is optimistic that the export market will improve this year.
As the COVID-19 vaccination program rolls out in a number of countries, mining company Indo Tambang Raya Megah is optimistic that the export market will improve this year. According to Indo Tambang Raya Megah Director of Investor Relations Julius Gozali, a significant increase in demand is predicted to come from China, which is experiencing a shortage of coal supply after the political policy to ban coal imports from Australia. In addition, indications of rising demand are also reflected in rising coal prices. However, Julius is still reluctant to open up about the production target set this year. Meanwhile, looking at the performance data as of the third quarter of 2020, the company's revenue is still dominated by sales to the export market. Sales to Southeast Asia, except Indonesia, India and Pakistan reached $295.78 million, or 33% of the total revenue, followed by sales to Taiwan, China, Hong Kong, South Korea were $209.08 million, while sales to the domestic market were $192.37 million. From all sources, for IDX Channel.
Step aside from market conditions as coronavirus pandemic takes a big role in current economic situations. Here it is an update data about coronavirus globally. And the graphic close of market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, your trustworthy economic, business, and capital market channel. I'm Clara Antawijaya. Have a nice evening and stay safe.